Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. We're getting into another Z series deck, and today I'll be showing you guys a list for Gotenks Reboot. This is one that caught my interest pretty heavily because, one, I was surprised I rebooted the leader at all, considering how relatively recent it was, but two, the leader is actually very different than the original leader in some of the ways that it operates, and Gotenks is one of my favorite characters, so I figured I would try out the deck, and it's a pretty solid green deck. I mean, green has historically not been one of the best colors in Dragon Ball Super card game. Coming out of Ultimate Squad, I'd rank it at number 4, right above black being the worst color, but I think green is on a heavy incline with some stuff coming out in Z series, so we'll talk about this in today's video. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, it would really help out if you were to use my link to TCG Player if you want to buy or pre-order any Dragon Ball Super cards, or any cards for that matter, actually. And of course, shout out to our team sponsor, Deck Planet, best deck builder in the game. Incredible resource. Anyways, let's jump right into things, covering the Unawakened Leader. So we have auto and card attacks, draw 1, and here's a big difference from the old leader. If you have 2 or more energy, when you activate a union skill, you may flip this card to its back. If you do, draw 1, untap 1, and add cards from your life to your hand so you have 6 life left. So instead of flipping upon playing a unison like the old leader did, you flip while fusing, and they printed a card to actually help make that a smoother transition, which is pretty good. And then you have the regular Awaken, of course. On the back side, you have auto once per turn. When you activate a union skill, play 1 ghost token with 15k power in rest mode. You're mostly looking to remove that ghost token from the game for the activate battle. Use up to 1 mono green card with 5k combo from your drop in a combo with its skills negated for the battle. And of course, you have the attacking auto, draw 1. So again, like, the leader works in a few different ways. You don't have the ability to play multiple tokens. You don't have the ability to remove markers from a unison just based on the leader, but it is a good leader at generating Z energy, which is pretty helpful in this deck with how good our Z leader is. I think we should just move right into the Z leader because you honestly want to get into this thing as quickly as you can. So you can Z Awaken for a green when you're at 5 or less life by paying 3 Z energy and 1 regular energy. When you activate a union skill, play a ghost token in rest mode. Same thing there. Activate main, limit 1, draw 1, and switch this card to active mode. So you always want to attack with your un-Z Awakened leader first before Z Awakening. This way you get the most value by restanding and drawing a card and then attacking again. And then you have the activate battle, limit 1, remove a Goten and a Trunks in your Z energy from the game. This card gets plus 15k power and double strike for the battle. Then at the end of the turn, remove this card from the game. So you do have a built-in win condition there, and you can actually be kind of sneaky with it because of course you can Z Awaken during battle. So if your opponent doesn't negate your leader swing and you had the setup for it, you'd have to have technically 5 Z energy because you have to have 3 to pay for this card and then a Goten and a Trunks in your Z energy to remove to gain the double strike. But you can win games in a sneaky manner with this, which is really solid. But honestly, get into the Z leader as soon as you can because just getting the extra draws and not having to attack to draw is always a really good upside. Alright, going into the main deck, we have some old stuff. So of course we have Grim Reaper. It's still the heart and soul of the deck. It's still probably the highest value card you can play. KO anything, draw 2 cards. It's just incredibly good. Not going to talk about this one too much because this is a really old Gotenks staple. And then I'm playing 4 copies of Trunks Bond of Friendship. I want to be able to find my unison, especially since we have a turn 1 free fusion. I do want to open this card to pitch it to fuse and then search for my unison. That's a really good kind of like quote unquote curve there. I say quote unquote because I mean Dragon Ball Super doesn't really operate on too much of a curve, but it does help fix your turn lineup pretty nicely. And then we have 3 copies of Goten Trunks Faultless Youth. So I'm playing 3 of this and 3 of the new Goten Trunks. Now, I just want to talk about this for a minute because this used to be the best fusion piece, mostly because it counted as both names. It doesn't actually do anything when you fuse with it. It can help fix some consistency things, and it can be a 1-drop 15k attacker in a pinch, and it can get you down to a 5 life threshold or a 4 life threshold if you need to get there. But we actually have much better cards to help us do that now that don't involve critting a life, so that's great. The real reason I'm playing 3 of this is just because it's another name, and honestly I can possibly see going down to 2 of this and going up to 4 of this because this card incredibly overperforms. The only reason I'm really playing a 3-3 split is because this Goten has 2 limit 1 effects, and in case I need to use the consistency effect of Faultless Youth to find a Gotenks, but honestly that hasn't really come up, especially with 4 copies of Gokul. But anyways, let's talk about the new Goten Trunks. So this card is insane. When you use it to fuse, you can give your leader 5k for the turn. So that means on the turn you Z Awaken, you can swing with your Unawakened Leader for 20 and then swing with your Z Awakened Leader for 20. That's a lot of value there. And then activate battle. If your leader is a green card with Gotenks in its character name and one of your green cards with Gotenks in its character name is in a battle, use this card in a combo from your drop, then at the end of the battle send this card from your drop to your warp. But the Z series mechanic allows you to bypass that and put it right into your Z energy, so you're pretty much always going to do that. Now this card's incredible again for that added value, because on your leader that can be a 25k attack just with this card being used for fusion alone. That's really good. You got to be careful sometimes, because obviously Grim Reaper can pick up fusion materials out of the drop area, so you don't want to, you know, kind of do this willy-nilly, leaving yourself with no fusion materials in drop to recycle. But it's still really good, and that alone might also be another reason to keep this card at 3, because this card doesn't go anywhere from the drop. It just goes right back to your hand, so that might be another reason to keep this ratio. And I have like this ratio. You don't really need to open with this card. You got to find it at some point in the game, which is fine. So these ratios have worked out. Then we're playing 2 copies of S3 Gotenks Ultimate Rookie, a new fusion coming out in the starter deck, and honestly it's pretty nice that the deck now has another reliable fusion to use. This one offers you barrier removal, gives you 2 15k attackers, and makes your opponent pitch one. And of course you only really want to play this card when you are actually on your Z leader, which is why I'm only playing 2 copies. But the added barrier removal is of course very, very nice. A little bit unfortunate you can't search it from the deck with Goku, because Goku only searches for a 6 or less fusion, so you do have to hard draw it, but it's still a really solid card. And I don't really recommend playing the old 5 drop because it's just too convoluted to get out. I think it fuses for 3 and only draws 1, so for that same sort of cost, but less draw power, and you're not ripping a card out of the opponent's hand, and you're not generating ghost tokens, I think I'd rather just have to hard draw the Ultimate Rookie. And this deck can cycle through a lot of cards, which is nice. Then we have Gotenks Fusion Confusion. So this is a new card that came out that is basically meant to help you awaken. So you can fuse this for free and then activate main. If your leader's green and has Gotenks in its character name, you can place this card in your owner's drop, add up to 1 Goten, 1 Trunks Youth, both green from your drop to your hand, then choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 3 or less and KO it. So what's cool is it actually allows you to pop some pesky 1-drops that people play on turn 1, like against U7 for example. You can pop their 1-drop Gohan that draws when they combo a skillless. That's a good example of that. But yeah, this thing being able to fuse very early on and for 0 energy allows you to awaken more smoothly, because you can still play a unison on 2 and then fuse and then awaken. So ideally you want to play SS3 Vegito. I still think SS3 Vegito is the best unison for this deck, because you should be aiming to fuse pretty much every single turn, so you should draw a card by union there. And the +2 just lets you build up to the -7, which basically is a win condition in and of itself. So the +2 giving things revenge really doesn't matter, honestly. I mean, you could maybe play Zarbon in this deck, the blocker that if your opponent KOs it, they pitch a card, but I don't think it's worth it at all, to be honest. I think the +2 is just a means to get you to the -7, and if you pull off the -7, you are probably winning the game that turn. Then as a supplementary unison, we have 2 copies of Piccolo Guardian of Earth. So I did try out SS3 Gogeta Carefree Combatant. That's the one that's coming out in the starter deck. I personally did not like it. I mean, we already have Goku to find our fusion materials, and I wanted a card that actually kind of, you know, increased my hand size. And I know that Gogeta is technically a +1, but again, I just didn't need to add all these extra fusion materials to my hand. I wanted to draw a fresh new card, and the -1's good as well. I'd honestly always rather start off with SS3 Vegito, but if in a pinch, like if this is the unison I happen to get off top 7 or happen to open with, I'm probably gonna keep it in hand to make sure I have a unison established for 2. And again, I personally found this one to be better than Gogeta SS3. And of course we have 4 copies of Charismatic Villain, and we have 4 copies of Dormant Potential Unleashed. We have 4 Perius Super Combo, best super combo you can play in this color, 3 clones, 1 Champa, 1 SS4 Vegeta Feigned Greeting. So this might seem like a weird pick. I mean, it's a green deck. We don't really struggle with removal, so I wouldn't recommend playing Broly in this deck, the new Overwhelm Broly. I think that this card's solid because 1, it's a giant 30k body for free, and 2, it puts pressure on your opponent's hand where you're already keeping the board clear with what your deck does inherently. So I do like the fact this is a free Overwhelm. Sometimes I find myself not needing or wanting an Overwhelm because, again, it can mess with your ability to pick up your fusion materials if your Grim Reaper happens to get removed, but it has been helpful in pushing for game towards the end of games, which is really nice. Another interesting one to talk about is Dark Death Ball. So I've been experimenting more with these older counters. They came out in set 10. Basically, for the entire, kind of color pool of them, you can use them if you have the corresponding color unison in play, and you can use them for free by discarding 2 cards. Then the effects vary depending on what color you're using. So here, you can negate the play of a 4 or less, and then pop a 1-drop. So the main reason I'm trying this card out is because it is free, and this deck always wants to have a unison in play, so it should always be live, theoretically. And in this deck, you can actually draw into a lot of dead unisons and dead extra cards like extra copies of Dormant, extra copies of your Unisons, extra copies of clones that you don't need, and having a free answer to Floodgates is always really nice. So I have liked it. Pitching 2 is rough sometimes, but again, when it's just a dead Unison or a dead extra card you can't combo with, it doesn't really matter when you're pushing for game, right? Just get those cards out of your hand, negate the counterplay or negate the Floodgate, whatever it is you're trying to stop, and then you're off to the races. It's honestly pretty good in my opinion. And then for the secret rare, we are playing Cell Xeno. So, I mean, Gotenks has always just kind of been a Cell Xeno turbo deck because your boss monster is a 6-drop and you can drop 2 of them very easily on turn 5. So, yeah, I mean, I like Cell Xeno. It helps close out games. You're basically just playing board control the entire early game, and if you haven't killed him with Grim Reaper Beatdown, Cell Xeno should come down and finish the job. And this is a newer addition to the deck. So we have Gotenks Beyond Sirius. This guy fuses for 1, draws a card, and activate main once per turn. If your leader is green, has Gotenks in its character name, remove 1 of your ghost tokens from the game, draw 1, then choose 1. Choose one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it, or choose an opponent's Unison and remove a marker from it. So I'm including this card because of that Unison removing capability, because in this deck I wasn't able to fit the Goku Piccolo Fated Rivals combo. I did try it out a 2-2 split, and it was just too inconsistent, and I really couldn't figure out any way to fit in 3 of each without really bogging down the consistency of the Gotenks stuff itself. So we do have this card for removing markers. Obviously it doesn't remove as many as the Fated Rivals combo does, but what's also cool about this is you can fuse for 1 if you're missing your Fusion Confusion. So it costs you 1 to fuse, and you activate your leader's Awaken, or the auto rather, that flips you. And then you go back to 2 energy open so you can establish a Unison if you need to. It's kind of a wacky order of doing things, but it is almost like extra copies of Fusion Confusion, which is kind of important in my opinion for getting Awakened. And I've liked the card. It's a more recent edition. I got to try it out more, but I do kind of like it. And then just wrapping up the Z deck for what we have 1 copy of Piccolo's Master's Teachings. Honestly, I have not found myself using this card very much. It's kind of weird, to be honest. Like, you can play Fusion Confusion from your deck, but it doesn't count as a union, so it doesn't get you Awakened. If this like guaranteed you're Awakened, that would be sick. That would be really good. But basically, the main purpose I found for this is if you play Fusion Confusion, it just lets you pick up proper materials that you need from your drop. So maybe your hand is just full of dead cards and you want to pick up certain fusion materials. That's where you want to play Fusion Confusion from your deck. Activate main, pop it, pick up 2 fusion materials, and then go about your day. The second auto is interesting. I mean, I can see it being relevant if your opponent has a battle card that can't be KO'd, because green is obviously all about KOing. So this offers you a different form of removal, which can maybe be relevant. That's why I'm including the 1 copy. And I honestly have not played this card yet, so I'll let you know if I find out the matchup it's relevant in. And then, unfortunately, Green Z battle card's not all that great. We're just playing 2 copies of Frieza because it's there. It costs 1 Z energy. It's a 2-drop 15k double strike if we need a double strike to win out the game. But we're not really able to proc that auto all that much because our battle cards are actually very high costed. And then 2 copies of SSB Vegeta Surmounting the Impossible, the best Z battle card in the game. If we are stuck at that 6th life, this gets us to 5, which we can then use to Z Awaken or use Homicidal Clone to get ourselves down to 4. This card just fixes so many consistency issues with so many decks. It's incredible. But anyways, that's going to cover the deck list here. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been playing Gotenks, so feel free to let me know in the comments below how you've been playing it differently. I am very curious to hear. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.